Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Crystal, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about 5 things I had to do to get my period back. So if you're not familiar with my story, which if you're new to my channel, you're probably not, about 5-ish, maybe 6 years ago now, I lost my period. I went through a time where I was having very irregular cycles, and then eventually my cycle just disappeared and I didn't get a period for about 6 months. Losing my period made me realize that there was a lot of things going on in my life that I just was not dealing with appropriately. There was a lot of things I was also doing that just weren't serving me, and losing my period was a really big wake-up call. But for those first few months, I was kind of just like, I can get used to this. And it's really sad that I thought that. And I think a lot of people think that when they lose their period. If you're someone who has lost your period, I really encourage you to learn more about your cycle and learn about the importance of menstruation, because it is an incredibly important part of our health. And so if you lose your period, that means something deeper is going on and you have to investigate that. I eventually had to do that because I came to the realization that losing my period wasn't a good thing. And so I want to talk about some of the things I did that helped me get it back. Of course, this is my journey. It's based on what happened to me. I've talked about period loss a lot. I've also talked about the reason why irregular cycles and period loss can happen. So I definitely recommend checking out those videos if you're interested in learning more. But for me, I lost my period for a few different reasons. I wasn't eating enough, and that wasn't a conscious thing that I was doing. I wasn't trying to restrict calories. I wasn't trying to lose a bunch of weight or anything like that. I was working a very stressful job. I was eating very clean foods, whatever that means, right? I'll get into all of this a little bit more in depth as I talk about these things. But another reason why I lost my period is because of stress. Stress was a huge factor. When I lost my period, I was in my mid-20s, and so my stress coping techniques were not great. They weren't super healthy either. And to be completely honest, I am the type of person that can become really overwhelmed very easily if I don't have a lot of self-care in place. And I just wasn't taking care of myself. I was just in like a stage of burnout, basically. And that's to do with work and a lot of other stuff. I'll get more into it. But stress was a big factor for me, and I think it's a huge factor for a lot of people that struggle with irregular cycles or period loss. I'm not saying that that's the only thing that can affect things, but it is a contributing factor that a lot of us might not pay attention to, myself included. After learning a lot about period loss and after learning about hypothalamic amenorrhea, I checked all the boxes. That is what I was struggling with. So with that all being said, and of course with you remembering that this is my journey, I wanted to talk about the 5 things that I did that helped me heal my hormones. So number 1 is I had to eat more. I just had to eat more calories because at the time I was eating very clean. And the reason why I want to make this video and talk about this is because I think it's so easy, especially for like women, to be very conscious of what they eat to a point where it's not supporting their health. And I know that I was so conscious of what I was eating that if you looked at the meals I was eating, you'd be like, wow, she's so healthy, she's eating so great. But obviously I wasn't giving my body enough like calories. And so I had to make a big change in how I approached food. And so I bumped up my calories, bumped up my fats, really just had like fun with food and started to really enjoy food again. And instead of seeing it as something that was like potentially gonna cause me to get sick or gain weight or whatever, I saw it as a way of nourishing my body, because ultimately that is what food is. It's nourishment. So that is the first thing I had to do. The second thing I had to do, which is something that's a little bit different that you might not hear about in like the period loss, community, but I actually had to increase my exercise. And I don't mean that I started to like work out like a bunch, but at the time when I lost my period, I was so stressed out and I was working so much that I wasn't taking care of myself, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't really doing any of that. I kind of realized that in order for me to be healthy, I had to start taking care of myself, and that included moving my body. And so I started to go to the gym, and what actually happened is that it actually helped me have a bigger appetite, because at the time my appetite was, not very high because I was sedentary most of the day. So I found that exercise helped me not only decrease my stress, but it also helped me increase my appetite, which then allowed me to gain like healthy weight and kind of restore my body to kind of its most healthful state, if you will. So that is something that I had to do. That is not going to be the answer for everyone. Some people who lose their period will actually lose their period from working out too much. So again, this is just my journey, but I found it to be really, really helpful. And I still find it to be really helpful, especially for my mental health now. And so I really enjoy moving my body in like so many different ways. I love strength training. I love going for bike rides, you know, like all that stuff. So the third thing I had to do to get my period back was manage my stress. So stress management is so huge when you lose your period. I know it was for me, and I think it's a big factor for a lot of people. It can be easier said than done. And for me, it was a journey. It wasn't like overnight I was perfect at managing my stress. I really had to recognize some negative coping mechanisms I had, and I had to adjust accordingly. And it was really hard. I had to do a lot of inner work on this journey, not only around stress management and like people pleasing and all that kind of stuff, but you know, around food and everything as well. You know, people don't talk about that enough. There's a lot of inner work that goes into like healing yourself, right? You have to heal your insides before it kind of shows outward. And so I had to do a lot of work around stress. And one thing that really, really helped was yoga. I didn't go to a studio. I just found yoga videos online. And for about 15 or 20 minutes at night, I would go into the bedroom and then I would do like a really like easy yoga sequence. And it really helped me just like, again, bring my stress levels down. I think it's really something that can be so beautiful for a lot of people who are stressed out if you can fit it in the morning or at night, because not only is yoga moving your body and you're connecting to your body, but you're also deep breathing. There's also a meditation aspect. Basically, it's like a movement meditation, and I really like that. And so I found that to be incredibly helpful. So the fourth thing that I did that really helped me when I was healing my period was creating boundaries around my time, which included being upfront with like my hours at work, because I am a people pleaser, and so whatever my boss wanted, I did. And so that often included like extra shifts, working earlier and later than I wanted to, or that I was maybe being paid for. And there wasn't really any boundaries around time. It was mostly just like I wanted to make everyone happy and do my job really well, and I put my needs and my time last. Creating boundaries around my time like really helped me have an actual life outside of work. It helped relieve my stress. It gave me time to, you know, go to the gym or exercise before or after work, because I was more strict with like the actual hours I was there getting paid for. It also just helped me realize a lot about myself and a lot about how easy it is to be taken advantage of. Even though I didn't really feel like that at the time, I do feel like that kind of now, where I'm like, dang, there was a lot of times where I could have said no or put myself first and it wouldn't have affected anything, but I didn't, and it ended up burning me out because I was just doing. I have since realized what boundaries around time and my energy and work really, really look like, and what it looks like to have healthy boundaries, rather than having boundaries where people don't respect them or take advantage of you. And that helped a lot, mostly just with stress management, to be honest, but it also helped me have a life again. So the fifth thing I did to get my period back is I started tracking my cycle, and I started learning about menstrual cycle awareness, which is my love language at this point in my life. I constantly and consistently am tracking my cycle to this day. When I had period loss, I was already tracking my cycle at that time because my periods were so irregular. But other than that, I wasn't tracking anything else. I wasn't tracking what my energies were like, how I was feeling, any symptoms I was having. I was just tracking when my period started and when it ended, and that was it. That gives you a little bit of information, but there's like this whole amazing world out there of cycle tracking and being aware of how your cycle impacts you every single day. And I started to incorporate this into my life. I started to really track my cycle. And I actually tracked on a journal at this time because I would just write everything down at night. I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I honestly think tracking my cycle and getting to know my cycle better, which helped me get to know my body better and really respect my body, I honestly think that was game-changing for me to get a regular cycle back. Because after I got my period back, there was a few months where it was irregular again, but then it just went from being so irregular to then regular, and it's been regular ever since. And that is when I started to practice menstrual cycle awareness. Like, I don't know about you, but that's pretty coincidental. Menstrual cycle awareness is still something that I practice very deeply. It's something that is so amazing, and And it's really why I like started this channel and started to talk about this stuff, because I want you to know how important your cycle is. And that's the reason why in every video I end with saying your cycle matters so much, because it does. And when I started to realize how much my cycle mattered, I started to take care of my body better. I started to have self-compassion. I started to like love my body in a way that I never thought possible. And I am so thankful for the practice. And this is why I do what I do. And so that is the 5th thing that I did to get my period back that made a huge difference. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I wanted to make this video to talk a little bit more about my journey and what really helped me and what continues to help me. And I also wanted to talk about this topic because I think this is really important to talk about. I know that often I think a lot of people think healing period loss is, you know, there's a formula for it. And if you do the formula, everything will be okay. But I really think that there's a lot more that goes into it. You know, there's a lot of inner work there. There's a lot of things happening that sometimes you really have to address and take a step back and look at your life and think like, am I eating in a way that's helping me? Am I exercising in a healthy way? Am I having boundaries around my time and work? Like, what's my stress levels like? Like, there's so much healing and deep work that goes into this. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. So hopefully you learned something. As always, your cycle matters so much, and I'm here for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!